So I was watching Bruins Blues Game 3 on June 1st on Saturday night. And during the second intermission, I was watching Sportsnet. The panel came up, and one of the insiders, Nick Kypreos, kind of dropped a little bit of a bomb about Patrick Marleau. Bit of an update. Now, yesterday, on May 31st, Pierre LeBrun from TSN, which is also based in Toronto, Ontario, he's another hockey insider / journalist who also writes for The Athletic. He came up with a news story that broke about how the Leafs were in talk with the LA Kings about a trade for Patrick Marleau. Now, where he got this information, I don't know. I would think the Kings may have leaked this. Maybe it's a sub-drama ploy by the Maple Leafs to push Marner's camp to get him, to sign for less money. I don't know. There's a lot of ideas out there. But why would, Patrick Marleau go to the Kings, right? It's probably going to be a swan song his last year. Now, he makes just over around $6.25 million. He really slowed down last season. He only scored 17 goals. I want to say it's his lowest since his first in the league. And he looked visibly slow in the last half of the season in the playoffs. Like, he should have been playing on the fourth line, not even the third line. So he's definitely lost that foot speed. But in his twilight year, why wouldn't he want to go to a contender? First off. So that takes LA out of the picture right away, right there, right? Not only that, but LA's only got just over $11.5 million in cap space. And they probably have a couple other contracts they want to get rid of, like Dion Phaneuf's and Ivo Kovalchuk's. They're basically on a mini rebuild here, a rebuild on the fly, because they still have at least a core, so to speak, of Doughty and Kopitar and Quick to some extent. Maybe he'll get traded too. But I just don't see it happening. I mean, you think they would probably want to buy out Dion Phaneuf. And if they took on Marleau, they couldn't buy him out as well in that same year. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, there was some Twitter talk about, Nylander and Doughty being involved in the trade as well. Oh, yeah, there was a couple firecrackers went off there. Now, back to Nick Kypreos and what he said, and I'll literally quote him right here. And he says, it sounds like Marleau and the Leafs are set to part ways. And then he goes on to say, the family is going to move back to San Jose, which is weird. Patrick Marleau has made it clear to the Toronto Maple Leafs that he'd like to get closer to his family once again, which means moving to the West Coast area. Why would his family move in the first place? I don't get that. Away from him. Maybe they hate Toronto or something, but they've been there for 2 years. So far as the media knows, everything's been going great. I mean, they've basically adopted Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner as their own, all the family pictures and everything. I don't get that, and it's just really bizarre. It's kind of like saying, your boss telling you fired and you saying, I'm not fired, I quit. So the news comes out from TSN about, the Leafs talking to the Kings about a trade. And then Nick Kypreos comes out with the news today for Sportsnet saying, "Oh no, Patrick Marleau is asked to move on," and stating this weird family reason for them moving away. Why would they? I don't get it. That part sounds strange to me. Now, the other big news he brought up were the teams involved, because it wasn't just LA he mentioned. He also mentioned Colorado and the Phoenix Coyotes. He threw those two into the fire as well. Now, we already talked about LA. LA also has Todd McClellan as their new head coach next year, and him and Patrick Marleau have a history, obviously, because he coached him while he was with San Jose. Blah blah blah. But I still don't see that as a turning point to anything. Now, the Arizona Coyotes, they only have just over $8.5 million in cap space for projected cap space for next season. So they don't have a lot there. And I don't see them as a contender, really. I know they just missed the playoffs, and Rick Tocchet's doing really good things there. But I don't see, maybe they'll be sort of the Carolina Hurricanes of 2019-20 season. But still, I don't, even with or without Patrick Marleau, I don't see them doing anything. And it's closer to, San Jose, whereas, his family's now moving back to, but to me it doesn't make sense. Colorado Avalanche, on the other hand, does, and I mentioned this in my video that I released yesterday, originally about the Pierre LeBrun news of the Patrick Marleau trade, and I went over, I believe I went over some of the teams that had the cap space, which would make sense, and one of them that I mentioned was Colorado, because I went over the whole league. Colorado's got just over $37 million in cap space for next season. And yeah, I know they got to resign guys like Rantanen, who's going to cost them probably around, I don't know, $9 or so million. They still got a lot left. And they're probably going to have a lot of prospects, AHL and otherwise, maybe even breaking the team next year. And Colorado's big problem was depth scoring, right? It was just that number one power line, and then that was kind of it. But they went, they went to the second round of the playoffs, and they could look a lot better next year. Makar jumped on the team during the playoffs. He looked fantastic. Their defense is going to be a lot more improved. I see some good things happening for the Avalanche. Not to mention they've got a boatload of draft picks as well. So the future is bright there. Having a player like Patrick Marleau in the dressing room, for instance, will be great for all of those kids and for the leadership that he brings, the intangibles, so to speak. They could play him on what? Maybe the third or fourth line, and he's kind of closer to his family. That to me makes sense. Now, the question is, what do the Leafs give up? Because there's got to be things going the other way, and this is Nick Kypreos picks up on this later when he says there'd be no question that a type of deal would have to involve taking on that contract, maybe taking on a current roster player that the Leafs would have to give up, and maybe even retaining as much as $1.52 million. Yeah, the Leafs may have to do that. But who might that player be? Because you'd have to send another player, a roster player, like he mentioned. Why send Kapanen or Johnson? And that's very possible. I mean, there was talk they would have to trade at least one of them anyways. But the idea was to keep those three players, the third being Mitch Marner, of course. Maybe Nazem Kadri? I know the Leafs really were looking forward to having this three-headed monster because Kadri was a second-line center before they got John Tavares, and he had back-to-back 30-goal seasons before this season just passed. And then he kind of, had a bad year. I'm not even sure if he hit 20 goals this season. So... And that's a huge advantage for the Leafs, too, right? Having a really good third-line center like that. And, hopefully he would have had a bounce-back year next season. But, yeah, I don't know. He looked good on Colorado's second line, that's for sure. Second-line center. So, yeah, we'll see. The Leafs got a ton of prospects. We could speculate forever, but I'm just going to end the video today. Tell me what you think. Where you think Marleau might be going, what you think they might be doing with him, keeping him or buying him out, and if they were to buy him out, who he'd go and resign to with, like San Jose or whatnot, and what do you think the Leafs would have to give up for him? If you like this video, please hit that like button. If you really liked it, smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hey, if you happen to have any Hockey Geek friends, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.